Welcome back to the Tracy Take. I am Tyler here with my brother Ryan, and today we are doing Ryan's final mock draft of the 2025 off season. It's going to be a lot of fun, and we're going to get into it here in a second. But real quick, a housekeeping note: we will be going live this Thursday for the first round of the 2025 NFL Draft, starting at 7:45 p.m. Feel free to join us. Leave a comment. Let us know what you want to see your team do when it comes to their turn to pick, and also then what your thoughts are when your team selects. So to get notified when we go live, hit that bell. And while you're at it, hit the like button and also the subscribe button as well to get notified also when more videos come out. And Ryan, with that being said, as I'm done rambling through this intro, let's throw it over to you and let's
Let's
get your
do it.
final mock draft underway.
Let's do it. It's been a long offseason. I'm looking forward to getting this draft going. So kicking it off, I think we all know what this first pick is going to be, and it's Cam Ward here, the quarterback from Miami. I think he's probably a top 10-ish prospect in this class. But I think him being a quarterback, Tennessee having that need at quarterback, I think that inflates him up over Travis Hunter and Abdul Carter. And they go and they get their quarterback of the future. I think he has the upside to be a true franchise quarterback. He also, like, I think when you compare him to last year, he probably has one of the lowest floors of any of those six quarterbacks taken last year. Like, obviously, Penix with his injuries, I think has a low floor, like injury wise, but play wise, he was one of the better quarterbacks.
Yeah.
McCarthy was a bit of an unknown. Nix had a high floor. Nobody knew how high his ceiling was. So I think it's a risky pick, but Tennessee's in a situation where they need to kind of swing for the fences. So Cam Ward coming off the board there. Next up here with the Cleveland Browns, Travis Hunter. I think it's been pretty well known that the Browns have expressed a lot of interest in him. The one thing we do know for sure is they're taking either Travis Hunter or Abdul Carter. I don't think that there's any chance that Shedeur Sanders is going to be the pick or any other quarterback. So I do think Travis Hunter is going to be the pick. He slots in. They have some corners hitting the free agent market in 2026. They also have a need at wide receiver now. And I think he can come in and be a day one contributor on both sides of the football for them. So Travis Hunter there. This to me is where I think the draft gets interesting. You talked about this in your mock draft, but Abdul Carter here to the Giants. I think if they didn't have Brian Burns or make that trade, that this would be a much easier pick. But with that being said, Kayvon Thibodeau is going into a contract year. His play, while it picked up closer to the end of last year, it hasn't been on the level that you would want a top 5 pick like him to be at. So I think going forward and taking Abdul Carter here and maybe moving on from Kayvon Thibodeau, you kind of reset that contract there for Kayvon Thibodeau and you move it over to Abdul Carter. You get him cheaper for longer. Then you can also go and flip Kayvon Thibodeau for more draft capital so you can have more capital to move up, down, around the board, wherever you want later in the draft. I think makes the most amount of sense. They could also just trade this pick outright. I think you look teams like the Panthers, the Bears, maybe even the Saints, although the Saints have other needs and need the draft capital that they have to fill those needs. They could make a move up to 3 to go and get Abdul Carter. But I think right now, what I'm going to go with is the Giants just stick and pick Abdul, and then they move on from Kayvon Thibodeau and maybe go into day 2 with an extra pick somewhere from a team looking for an edge rusher. So there, Abdul Carter is a New York Giant. Here with the New England Patriots, I went back and forth on this. I think you could go a lot of different directions with this pick. Tet McMillan would make sense. I hate to say it, Ashton Jeanty I think would make sense. I wouldn't hate that pick. You could go Tyler Warren, but Will Campbell to me I think has really stuck out throughout this process. Just character wise, you go watch him on film, and he's dominant most of the time. Every now and then you see him lose some reps, but I think when he loses, he's making either footwork mistakes or hand fighting mistakes that I think can be coached out of him. And so I think Will Campbell will be the pick there. And I made this comment on your mock draft as well, but what the Patriots get with the Will Campbell pick is they just get better. Whether it's his mindset that elevates them, whether it's his play on the field that elevates them, whether it's both, I think that they just get better by drafting good football players. And I think Will Campbell is a top 5 football player in this class. And so whether he makes it at left tackle or not, I don't think it fully matters, because even if he kicks into left guard, he's going to be an all-pro left guard I think in my unprofessional opinion. So rounding out the top 5 here, and I'll throw it over to you so I can get a drink of water. But Mason Graham just makes too much sense to the Jags. That pick is just uh, chalk. I think you look, they have Josh Allen and Trayvon Walker. You throw Mason Graham there in the middle. That's a really disruptive front four, and then they can go and get a run stuffing defensive tackle later in this really deep defensive line class. So I think Mason Graham. It just makes too much sense in my eyes for him to go and be a Jacksonville Jaguar. So I like that fit. Tyler, what are your thoughts so far on my top 5?
Yeah, I think pretty vanilla overall. The most interesting pick is going to be New York. If they don't like Shador and they don't like any of the other quarterbacks, which route are they going to end up going? In all honesty, it's like, do they go Ashton Jeanty and try and replace Saquon Barkley? Do they trade back? I do think it's a potential trade back spot with teams who want to go get Ashton Jeanty, who want to go get Abdul Carter. I could absolutely see them like drafting Ted McMillan. I would get why they would do that, but at the same time, though, too, it feels like that would be the third option between drafting Abdul Carter or Ashton Jeanty or maybe even Mason Graham or trading back. And then like Ted McMillan's like the third option of those. So I guess if you include all the players, then that I included there is like option 6. So it's a
Yeah.
possibility, but I think that's the most interesting one. Everything else is very on par to what we've spoken about all this offseason, what would make sense. Your Patriots, if they drafted Ashton Jeanty, I would see it. I will say for your Patriots, I'm between Will Campbell, Ted McMillan, or Ashton Jeanty.
Yeah.
Now, I know we've gone back and forth about potentially drafting Mason Graham, but even with Christian Barmore and his blood clots, I still think they would just go a different route. This is such a deep defensive line class.
Yeah.
I think they would go with one of those 3 players before they would go with Mason Graham.
Yeah, no, and I agree with that. And with the 3 guys at the top, Cam Ward, Travis Hunter, Abdul Carter, going off the board 99% of the time, I feel like that they're going to end up with one of those 3. So I do like Mason Graham a lot. They just signed Milton. If they didn't sign Milton Williams, I would that would probably be my favorite
Yeah.
pick there. But Milton Williams makes that interesting. Christian Barmore and his health status is something to monitor as well. But uh, carrying on here with this mock draft, I thought about maybe going another route here, but I think you look at this draft. You have Jacoby Myers, who's your wide receiver, who's kind of your technician route runner. Not the most explosive guy, but he's very good in contested catch situations. He's a route. He has very good nuance in his routes, and so I think that's a really good wide receiver to maybe add a day 2 guy to. So I'm not going to take Tet McMillan here. They had some promise in their offensive line. They drafted a few guys last year, mainly JPJ. Colton Miller is there at left tackle for now. And so I think going and just getting an Ashton Jeanty, leaning heavily on the run game like we know Pete Carroll likes to do, I think is going to be the best thing for them. And then they can go and get a Jaden Higgins or a Savion Williams or a Jack Besh in the 2nd or 3rd round and build up that wide receiver core. So going to go with Ashton Jeanty. The Jets, I find it hard to believe that if Armand Mimbu is on the board, the Jets will not be taking Armand Mimbu. Letting Morgan Moses walk, I think, was a telltale sign that they're going to address that position somewhere else and go and fill that in the draft. And Armand Mimbu is a tremendous right tackle. He would be my pick for the Patriots at 4 if he was a left tackle. And I think the Patriots will take the risk with Will Campbell at left rather than trying to draft Armand Mimbu and flip him from right to left, just because that footwork can get really awkward. I believe it could lead to injuries. You just think of the muscle memory you have going on your back leg, and then you switch with that amount of force. I think it could cause injuries, slow career development, and do a whole number of bad things to a player. So I'm going to go with Armand Mimbu. They need a right tackle really bad. He's a plug and play starter for them there. And I mean, look, you got Braylon Allen, Brees Hall, Justin Fields is a mobile guy. You have Garrett Wilson again, like the Raiders. You can go and address the wide receiver position on day 2. I think Armand Mimbu is the way to go. So next up here with the Carolina Panthers, a guy that I wasn't originally high on, but as the draft process has gone on, I've just become so enamored with a lot of what he brings to the table and his versatility on the defensive side of the ball, and that's Jalen Walker. Uh, Apparently, there's also a lot of interest from the Panthers in him, but I think he's going to do his best work as an outside linebacker where he can be an edge rusher, he can drop back into coverage, but very smart football player. He's going to be a future captain on a football team, and I think in that outside linebacker role, his skill set of speed and power, being in that 245-pound frame, I think is just a tremendous player. And so I think he's one of the few guys that I've really seen separate himself from a lot of the other guys in this draft class. And so I think Jalen Walker is going to go here to the Carolina Panthers. Next up here with the New Orleans Saints. So the Saints are in a weird spot. So the news with Derek Carr's shoulder has just come out, and him playing in 2025 is really up in the air. Nobody knows what's actually going to happen. Maybe the Saints do internally, but externally, nobody knows. I don't think that they're going to take a risk on a Shedeur Sanders. I personally think you look at Kellen Moore, and I know he's a creative play caller, but I think you look at what he's had success with. You have the Dak Prescotts, you have the Jalen Hurtses. Like I think that he would do better calling plays for somebody like a Jalen Milroe with a day 2 pick, or even like a Jackson Dart or a Riley Leonard if they want to go the developmental route. Then if it doesn't pan out, they'll be at the top of the draft next year and they can go and take somebody of maybe a higher pedigree than a Shedeur Sanders. I think this is way too high for Jackson Dart. So I actually have them going with Tet McMillan here. I think he's a really good complement to Chris Olave, Rashid Shaheed. They have Alvin Kamara. They just re-signed Jawan Johnson. He can be that over the middle yards after catch threat that they need. So I like that fit. If they go with what's his name, Spencer Rattler for this season, I think that giving him more weapons to throw to only benefits him in success even more, or gives him a better chance to succeed. So I think that's a really good fit there. And then Chris Olave can continue to be the deep threat that he has been. So Tet McMillan there for the Saints. And then here with the Chicago Bears, I actually mixed this one up. I haven't made this pick in any of my previous mock drafts, but the Bears, they've invested a lot in the trenches, offensive line, defensive line. I know they just extended Kyler Gordon. They Jalen Johnson got an extension, I believe, last offseason as well. So they've spent a lot of money on the trenches and on the corner spot. But one of the things that I feel like has gone away is just the play in that safety room. And I understand that he didn't test well athletically at the combine. I don't care. Malachi Starks is a phenomenal football player, and he's going to be a captain in your room. These two Georgia defenders that have taken so far, very high character guys, and I believe are going to be great pros. But this is one of the things that I feel like the Rams and the Eagles do so well is, yeah, they take swings on like super athletic players, but they also like Cameron Kitchens last year, I think, is a good example. He went in like the 90s and he just didn't test well athletically. Well, he was a phenomenal safety as a rookie. He's just a good football player. So what if he ran a 4.54? It doesn't matter. And so I think that Malachi Starks here going to the Bears, I think is a good fit. I think Kevin Byard, he's getting to 33. They have Jaquan Brisker. He can play a variety of different roles in a safety room. He's just a phenomenal football player, and I think he's really going to shore up the back end of that defense. And you go look at who they have to play. You have the Packers, you have the Vikings, and the Lions. And so I think that going and shoring up the back end is going to be a really big thing for that defense.
I like it. Yeah, no, I can see it. If we want to scroll back up here to where we left off, Ashton Jeanty to the Raiders makes sense. Armand Mambu makes sense. I really like the Jalen Walker pick. He's a guy I think just if you're looking for just a versatile guy overall, I think maybe I would have gone more with Jahad Campbell. I get why you go Jalen Walker. I think maybe I'd go more with Jahad Campbell here for the Panthers. But I can see it going either way. Saints are very interesting now with Derek Carr, and as you did a great job kind of outlining like why you don't think they'd go Shedeur Sanders. Go check out my mock draft, which should be coming out at the same time to get who I selected here. Because the Saints, I think, are very interesting overall on what route they want to end up going. And I agree with your point too. Is what you said. There's a lot of good points. I don't think there's really a wrong direction the Saints can go in with this draft. By going and
Yeah.
getting Ted McMillan, I think giving Spencer Rattler more options to throw to, if that is the guy who's going to be number one come week one for the Saints. Because to be fair to Spencer Rattler, it's like obviously last year wasn't that great for him, but at the same time though too, he was playing with the freshman squad, like not even the JV
Yeah.
squad of guys. The Saints were so banged up
They
when
were on like their 7th, 8th, and 9th wide receiver in that Green Bay
oh
game. Like it was
oh yeah.
insane.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So like Bub Means, I don't even think Bub Means was playing in that game.
No.
I'm curious to see what the Saints end up doing here. And as a Falcons fan, I love to see it. So, I have one more of the Saints struggles, not that them get drafting Ted McMillan, and then we gotta somehow find someone else to guard him and Chris Olave. So Malachi Starks to the Bears. I think they're in a very interesting spot overall. I really like what they've done with their roster. I really like Ben Johnson now as their head coach. I could absolutely see them being a potential trade up team to go get Ashton Jeanty to go bounce over your Patriots, maybe even the Raiders. Or sorry, the Raiders, maybe even your Patriots. Excuse me. So if the Giants want an extra second round pick and they don't really know what they want to do, trade back and they'll get at least a that Bears second round pick, if not even then some more draft capital
Yeah.
as well. So and then Malachi Starks going in there. I get your logic as well, just beefing up that secondary in any form. Only thing he can't really do is outside corner. Other than that, he's
Yeah.
probably best as a free safety, but he can do everything in between.
Yeah. And the real quick on Jalen Walker, I would have taken Jihad Campbell, but like randomly, like 2 weeks ago, news broke that he had shoulder surgery and now is questionable for training camp in his rookie season. And so like I think that's going to knock him down draft boards a good bit, just because that first training camp is a really big learning process for these guys. So
Yeah.
we'll have to see how that plays out. Maybe it's not as big of a deal as what I heard, but I had him fall a little bit just because 21-year-olds with shoulder surgery. It could be it's a big question mark, especially not knowing really what all happened. So let's get back into things here. So going through my tackle rankings, I have 3 tackles that I have like year 1 starter grades, like first round grades on. Will Campbell, Armand Mimbu, and then Kelvin Banks. I think Kelvin Banks is a phenomenal football player. He's better in pass protection. He is a good run blocker, but he's like a heavyweight, like heavy hitter where
Mm-hmm.
like he's going to take some massive swings and he's going to miss a lot. But when he connects, man, he blows some people up in the run game. And I think it's a phenomenal fit here. He can come in and play that left guard spot. And then when Trent Williams is ready to retire, maybe he can kick out and be that left tackle again. Or maybe he's just the understudy to Trent Williams for a little while. But I think that this is a really solid pick there for the 49ers. Moving on, we're going to go back to back Texas guys here. I'm also going to go with Matthew Golden. So I had Ted McMillan come off the board. He is still my number 1 wide receiver, but Matthew Golden has risen up a lot throughout this pre-draft process, and I have him as my clear number 2 wide receiver. And then I think there's a pretty big drop off between them and the next 2 guys. And so I'm going to go with Matthew Golden here to the Dallas Cowboys. They have CeeDee Lamb. To me, I think he is that like do it all receiver. He lines up anywhere, yards after catch. He can beat guys deep. He can do everything. Matthew Golden can be a nuanced route runner and really win some one-on-one matchups while CeeDee Lamb is getting double covered. So I like him. Another thing I really liked about him was as the stage got bigger, he got better. And as the season went on, his stats continued to increase. And so I think that's a really good sign for guys coming into the NFL there. So here with the Dolphins, there's been a lot of rumblings out there down there in Miami about just Jalen Ramsey and him potentially moving on. I thought corner was a need for them anyways, but now it's an even bigger need. And I think Will Johnson is going to come off the board here at pick number 13. It just makes too much sense. You move on from Jalen Ramsey, go out and get a number 1 corner here. He really,
Yeah,
in my opinion,
I see
should
it.
be a top 10 pick. I don't teams are scared of his turf toe injury, and then he kind of sat out, I think, to prepare for the draft. But it is what it is. Maybe there's more that I'm missing in that conversation, but I think he's a really talented football player. So here with the Colts, this is where I have Tyler Warren coming off the board. This is the same pick you made in yours. If he's here, I'm running it in. I'm running up there, taking Tyler Warren, putting him in a fullback position next to or in front of Jonathan Taylor. You have Anthony Richardson back there. You have no idea what they're going to do. They could run a bubble screen to Tyler Warren. They could run power formation to Jonathan Taylor. They could do a bootleg with Anthony Richardson and have Tyler Warren go out for a route. They could do a double pass. Who the hell knows when Tyler Warren is in there? They could do so many things. I think Shane Steichen would do such a good job getting him scheme touches, but then also scheming up misdirections and doing things to confuse defenses. And so the biggest thing for me, I think, is just going to be, does Indianapolis have the work ethic that they want them to that they need to succeed at the NFL level? So Tyler Warren going here to the Indianapolis Colts. And this is where I went back and forth. I'd done a litany of things with your Falcons pick here throughout this draft process. And this was one, I hadn't done this yet, but this was one I thought about. You didn't like this last time, but I still think Ray Zabel is in play. This is like his absolute ceiling pick. They could go Luther Burden. They could go Emeka Egbuka. They could go Jahad Campbell, Mike Green. But the big thing for me is going and looking at just their trade capital. They only have 5 picks in this year's class, and 2 of them are 7th round picks. And so I really think that the Falcons, they have a big old for sale sign on top of the 15th pick and are going to take the best offer that they can get. So I think the Cleveland Browns are going to make them an offer that I don't think that they could refuse. So they get 367 and then 179, and then they get a 2nd round pick next year to kind of sweeten the deal for them. But the Falcons move back. Maybe they get a little bit more. Maybe they get another day 3 pick, or maybe they get like 94 and 104 instead of 67. And then the Falcons give up pick 15 here. So your Falcons aren't making a 1st round pick in this, but they go and they get to, I believe, 8 picks in this draft class. They get 2 more day 2 picks, so they'll have 3 day 2 picks, and then some more picks there. And this is where I'll have the Cleveland Browns take Shadur Sanders. So they reunite Shadur with Travis Hunter. I think that's going to be a really big ticket selling promotion that the GM can convince ownership on. But then also too, I think Shadur Sanders and Kevin Stefanski, I think you look at Joe Flacco being the accurate passer, the accurate on-time passer that he is. I think you could get Shadur Sanders to do a very similar thing, and this offense could find a lot of success there. So I like Shadur Sanders in this offense. I think too, you look, it gives this franchise hope for the future, and I just think it's a good fit all in all for both parties involved. So that's 15 picks here. Tyler, what are your thoughts so far?
Yeah, so real quick, because obviously I'll talk a lot about the Falcons one here, but Calvin Banks going to the Niners makes sense. I like Matthew Golden to the Cowboys. In my mock draft, there's another receiver that fell a little bit, and so I think receiver makes sense here at 12, kind of matter who it is. Will Johnson, kind of replacing Jalen Ramsey, or at least just getting ready for the future, even without Jalen Ramsey makes sense. Then Tyler Warren also too. For the Falcons, yeah, I really like us trading back overall, just with the few amount of picks that we have, makes sense. But also then too as well, I kind of touched on this a little bit in my video, so I won't go too deep into it. Go check it out. But it's like the Falcons, it's like we need edge rushers. We need that edge rusher, and like we've been saying that now for like it feels like a decade, and it's just a why waste another pick on another potential guy when we have so few draft capital. Let's trade. It's such a deep class in general. Let's go get more picks. We need some more receivers. We need a center. We need some cornerback help as well. So we even then got future draft capital, which I like in this trade scenario, so to say, of a 2nd round pick. And knowing the Browns, is probably going to be a very early 2nd round pick next year. Knowing the Browns, so
Yeah.
I think that's actually a fair a trade if we're able to trade back and get some more picks in this year's draft class. and then even next year's as well. And for the Browns, I think it makes sense too. It's funny. I'm just now like realizing like if they get Travis Hunter at 2, like, well, let's go get his quarterback at 15, or trade up to go get his quarterback if he falls here. And it makes sense too. We're starting to get to a point where there are going to be some other teams that would want to trade up that haven't gotten a quarterback yet. Because really, honestly, it's just the Steelers now at this point. I'm trying to think what other teams at this point haven't had it in the first round are looking for quarterback. It's the Steelers, right? That's it.
You have the Steelers. I would put LA in that
The
category as well.
LA Rams, yeah.
Just because I think they need a developmental guy. Um, I this is another thing. I don't know what the Lions' long-term plans are. I know like they really like Jared Goff as a city, but at what point do you look at Jared Goff and say like I just don't know how far he can really take us? Um, I
It's
say that
a two.
they were the 1 seed in the NFC. So like I
Yeah.
understand that. It's just he doesn't have elite traits like a lot of these other guys in the league. So
Well,
I don't know.
yeah, I can see. I see your point. I won't argue
Yeah.
it, but it's I think for the Browns, what's interesting about this trade, and it makes sense for the Falcons, and it makes sense, but it's the Falcons are that clear next team that potentially would want to trade back. The Cardinals maybe, and they don't really have, to the Browns. The Bengals won't trade back, even though like they are limited on draft capital. I think the Seahawks, where they're at, just because this is where you start looking at the top interior offensive linemen. The Buccaneers, I don't think are going to trade back. I mean, maybe they could, but like because you're getting dangerously close to the Steelers and teams. The Steelers might want to go trade up in case if Aaron Rodgers isn't the guy. So I think this would make sense. The Browns are looking to make a splash. They have a bunch of draft picks this year, so it would make sense. Like let's sacrifice a couple.
The
Um,
Browns would still have
and they still have 8 picks,
yeah, what is that? 1, 2, 3,
6 picks.
4. Yeah, they still have 6 more picks there where like that gives the Falcons what 1, 2, 3, 4, 7 picks like a normal team. Uh so I think that's a very fair
We have 4 Cleveland picks. Did you see that?
y-
We have 4
yeah.
Cleveland.
Yeah, I mean, hey, if they want Shadur, that's probably the going rate for it. So
At this point, yeah. Well, because and there's gonna be other teams too that are gonna wanna trade up with the Falcons because they know
I
this is
agree.
gonna be a trade
I
back.
we actually also only talked about like the Giants. I think the Saints, the Falcons wouldn't do a deal with the Saints first off, but like the Giants are
Yeah.
another team that could be looking to trade up and back into the first. So I think that's a good trade. Let's get back into it here with the Arizona Cardinals, and this is where I have Kenneth Grant coming off the board. This one, like we've done this so much throughout the draft, it just makes too much sense. I feel like I've really thrown in like some new picks, like sparingly, just along with like the same like 15 other picks that I've made so far in all these mock drafts, but there are just some really good fits that I feel like make a lot of sense. And Kenneth Grant to the Arizona Cardinals is one of them. They need that interior defensive lineman. I know they went out, they got Dalvin Tomlinson and Calais Campbell, but Kenneth Grant can come in. He can be the future of that defensive interior and be in that rotation right away. And he's just a freak athlete. So I really like that fit. Here with the Cincinnati Bengals, I would have loved like for Kenneth Grant to go here. I still think they could potentially invest in an edge rusher opposite of Trey Hendrickson. But I do think that offensive line is something that really needs to be improved upon. They found something, I think, in Chase Brown at the running back position. Go and get Gray Zabel here and plug him in at guard center somewhere along that interior. You have Orlando Brown, you have Amarius Mims that you've invested in. Go and invest in that interior, and also maybe help Joe Burrow not be the most sacked quarterback in the last 3 years. So I think Gray Zabel can come in and be a force on that interior. Maybe give the Bengals even more potency on offense, which is kind of scary to think about, but I think keeping Joe Burrow upright is priority number 1. So Gray Zabel, go and snag him there. Makes this Seahawks pick really interesting because speaking of picks that I've made a ton, Gray Zabel to the Seattle Seahawks was kind of my go-to. So I'm going to go with Mike Green here, the edge rusher. He is kind of that outside linebacker, and maybe he's going to be a designated pass rusher early on in his career, but the athleticism and the ceiling and the flexibility around the edge is definitely there at an NFL level. And so
Hmm.
I think if he can up his play strength and be a little bit more stout on like early downs, I think he's going to be a really good 3-down edge rusher. And maybe he's never like a Von Miller or like a superstar edge rusher, but I think he can pretty consistently be a double-digit sack guy in the NFL. And I think that's well worth the 18th overall pick. So we're going to go with Mike Green here at pick 19. I mean, I've done this one a ton. It just makes too much sense. Donovan Ezeraku is a Todd Bowles outside linebacker edge rusher. He's a really good athlete. He has really good bend around the edge. He's stout against the run. Not that they really need that because Vita Vea takes up 3 gaps on that defensive front, but he's just a really good disciplined edge rusher. He has good bend around the edge. He's one of my favorite guys in this class just because a little bit of like I say a David and like he's an undersized guy that just worked really hard at his craft and was able to develop some pass rush moves this past season or past year and a half. But he's an effort, hard nosed guy. He's not afraid to get in on the run game, even though he's a little undersized. So I really like Domin Ezeraku. I think Todd Bowles will as well. And then here with the Denver Broncos, I feel like another pick I make all the time, but Emeka Egbuka, they need that consistent over the middle chain moving receiver. They have Marvin Mims as that down the field speed threat. Cortland Sutton wins down the field as a true X guy. I just feel like they don't have the guy that truly wins over the middle. So Emeka Egbuka, I really like here as well. So I think that's going to be a really good fit there as well. I'm going to take a drink of water. Tyler, what are your thoughts on the last 5 picks?
Yeah, I like it. Kenneth Grant to the Cardinals has been one of my favorite picks. If he's there, I think the Cardinals just going to go and run up and get him, especially now too with Calais Campbell being on that defensive line. Now that defensive line will be monstrous.
Oh
Probably
yeah.
one of the biggest defensive lines I think in the league with the most pass rush upside. And so Gray's able to the Bengals. I think that makes sense. I mean, still just trying to keep Joe Burrow upright, as you said, especially too with the amount of money now that they have invested in him, Jamar Chase, and T. Higgins as well. Is like you need to try and find some cheap diamond in the roughs over these next 5 years and try and keep him as upright as possible. So makes sense. Mike Green, Donovan Ezeraku, I like it a lot. I think Mike Green fits that mold really well. I'm curious with Seattle what they end up doing. I could see them maybe going receiver here in some capacity. I know they've got Cooper Cup. I know they have MVS also, but those are still definitely older guys, and they're trying to build to the future. What's interesting though with that is like Luther Burden's way too much of an overlap, I think, with Jack Smith and Jig, but same thing then too as well with Emeka Egbuka. But Emeka Egbuka, though, I will say did go to Ohio State with JSN, so they're used to playing with one another. But like, what other receivers would they want to end up going? Is this too high for Jaden Higgins, who would be definitely more that pure outside guy? Probably so, but I'm just trying to think of what are some other routes. So, offensive line definitely would be the more ideal route here for Seattle.
Yeah.
And then lastly, though, too, then with Denver with Emeka Egbuka, really like that fit overall. Ibuka will be that. I feel like Binky in like a positive sense when it comes, but like a guy that like Bo Nix can really rely on when he's in a tough
Mhm.
time and he needs to calm down. Give him his Binky and he's going to relax. So and I think Emeka Ibuka can be that guy.
Yeah, no, I think that's exactly what Emeka Egbuka is going to be. I don't know if he'll ever be like a true number 1 wide receiver, but I think he will be a very prominent wide receiver in an NFL offense, whichever one he goes to. So I would love, real quick, I would love for Seattle to be able to go with an offensive lineman, but there just wasn't one that I was truly loved at this point with Gray Zabel being off the board for them. So it's a
If you
tough spot.
find Tyler Booker, his average draft position is just outside the first round, but
Yeah.
he's also ranked though, what, 50th, I think, 40th. He's right there,
Yeah,
47th. So
47th.
so it's because it's Tyler Booker's definitely not going to be there whenever Seattle picks again, which is 50. And they are
Yeah.
picking again at 52. So this is where what's interesting with Seattle is they have all this extra draft capital. Do they want to trade up and go and hop over a couple guys to get raise it or go get the guy that they want. Or maybe are there some other guys they want to go and get that they feel will be very explosive. So
Yeah.
that's just going to
And
be interesting. They have the draft capital to be aggressive.
yeah, and this is where too, like I like Tyler Booker, I like Donovan Jackson. He's an interior guy. Tate Ratledge, that's really good
Yeah.
value. Jared Wilson, Jonas Savanaia, really good there. Wyatt Milam, like the day 2 interior offensive line class, I really really like. So I think that there is some reason to potentially wait on interior offensive linemen and get the edge talent in Mike Green. So let's pick back up here with the Pittsburgh Steelers. This is the same pick that you made in yours, but we've talked about it. You literally look at what the Steelers have done over the last 15 years at the running back position, and it's like they draft a guy pretty high, they run out his rookie contract, they let him hit the open market and sign with another team, and then they come back that offseason and they draft a guy really high. And it's just like Omarion Hampton is literally sitting there for the taking for them. And I think he's a phenomenal running back. He's patient. He uses his jump cuts to open up holes really well. Like just good power, good contact balance. Doesn't fumble the ball a lot. I think that's exactly what the Pittsburgh Steelers want in a running. Well, to be fair, I think that's what all 32 teams want in a running back. But the Pittsburgh Steelers specifically, just with his power and his ability to be a true bell cow back, I think that's exactly what Mike Tomlin is looking for there. So Martin Hampton going to the Steelers. Also the same pick, I think, that you made in yours. But Colston Loveland still being on the board, I think that just makes so much sense for Jim Harbaugh. He's the exact tight end that he wants. He's that move tight end where basically a glorified slot receiver, but similar, I think, to Denver. Go and look at the weapons that are there. Ladd McConkey, he's a really good route runner, but he wins going more down the field. They did lose Josh Palmer. Quentin Johnston has bricks for hands. And so like they need good pass catchers. And I think getting Colston Loveland, he's a top 5 pass catcher in this class. So I really like what he brings to the table. Go get Colston Loveland and put him in that pass catching room. So here with the Green Bay Packers, I went with Jahdae Barron, the versatile corner. They could go a lot of different ways. James Pierce Jr. is still on the board. You have Nick Scorton, Shamar Stewart, whichever edge rusher really suits your fancy. You have 3 different shapes right there. But they could also maybe go offensive line. They could take a Luther Burden or like a Jaden Higgins. I think that would be a popular pick up there in Lambeau. But I went with Jahdae Barron. They need the versatility and the talent on the back end of that defense, and what he brings to the table, I really like. I'm not as sold on him as PFF is. I think he's going to be a late mid to mid 20s kind of guy, just because he has played 3 different positions. He's done it at a high level, but he's kind of what's the term I'm looking for? Like he's good at all, but he's a master of none. You know what I'm saying. Anyways,
A jack of all trades.
yeah, he's a jack of all trades, but he's a master of none. Like, so
he's like a
definitely
Joe. He's like a Joe of all trades. He's not a
he's
Jack.
Joe
He's
of all,
a Joe.
yeah, he's a Joe. Yeah, exactly. So I think Jahdae Barron is a really good player. Is going to come in and he's going to be able to play a lot of different roles for you. I don't know if he's going to do them all at like the highest of high levels, but I think he's just a good football player here, and I think that's something that Green Bay will find a lot of value in, and he falls in their lap here at 23. So this is where I have actually my next trade, and Minnesota, they only have 4 picks.
Yeah.
So this is a really key trade back spot, I think, for a lot of teams. Like, I think a lot of teams have really honed in on what Minnesota is trying to do, and they've kind of really started to feel out the process on what they would or wouldn't take for a trade. And so I think the Giants are in a really good spot to come up here and take their quarterback of the future. So I think it was 34.99 in a 2026 round 4 for pick 24. So just going to force it. This is where I have Jackson Dart coming off the board. So I'm kind of a fan of Jackson Dart. This is like where I feel like the draft community is a little harsh because I feel like I like him. I don't love him. But if you don't love him, then you, like in the draft community, you absolutely hate him. I think there's a lot of things to really like about Jackson Dart's game. Some of the things that I don't like are out of his control. He ran a very simple system at Ole Miss. Lot of like deep crossers, like single cut routes. He's one read. But I think you look, he has the tools. I think he has the mental capabilities to learn an NFL offense. He's going to come in here and he's not going to be thrusted into this offense right away. There is Jameis Winston, there is Russell Wilson. Those guys are going to be the starters in 2025. But the big thing for me, this buys Brian Daboll and Joe Shane potentially another year, especially Brian Daboll. Because if you're going in, like, let's say they go 6-11 and you're going into the end of season meetings and you're like, hey, I know that we didn't do that great, but we put Jackson Dart in for the final 4 games and he actually really showed some promise. And here's what he did. Here's what we improved on. Give me one more season to go and develop with him. And I think we could really have something. I think that gives them a lot more leverage going into 2026. Now, maybe the Giants owner doesn't care and is just like, screw you guys, get out, like you're fired. But I think it gives them leverage going into those conversations. I also think maybe waiting isn't the best idea. I think a team like the Saints might move up and snag them. You also have LA there at 26. So I think that's a good fit there. Houston, going forward, I really think that protecting CJ Stroud has to be priority number one. They let Shaq Mason go. They traded Laramie Tunsil. I know they went out and they got guys to replace them, but they kind of got pennies on the dollar for the players that I felt they already had. And maybe they're going through a scheme change where these guys are going to come in and play at a really high level. But I do think Donovan Jackson is just such a talented player. Hold on. Excuse me. Sorry, I've been trying not to cough for 5 minutes. But Donovan Jackson is such a talented player. What he was able to do at Ohio State this past season, I feel like a lot of people don't have. I don't want to say respect for, because a lot of people do, but like I feel like it's being undersold. The dude was a All-American guard, and then in his critical draft year made a switch from guard to left tackle, which is the hardest position to play on the offensive line. And his first start was against Abdul Carter, where he did not do well. And then he absolutely rebounded throughout the rest of the year and became one of the best, one of the highest graded tackles throughout the second half of the season. And now, like, people are considering him as a tackle sometimes in the draft. And so Houston goes out, they get a really high character football player, a really talented football player, and a guy that is going to do whatever it takes for his team to win. He's a great athlete. So I really like Donovan Jackson here to the Houston Texans. So Tyler, what are your thoughts on the last 5 picks here, starting with Amari Hampton?
Well, yeah, as you mentioned, Amari Hampton, just the Steelers' history with running backs and drafting running backs, they're definitely going to get a guy who's going to be their day one starter. Work with Jaylen Warren, to split snaps a little bit, yes, but I think a guy like Amari Hampton, though, in the second half of this year, is going to be the guy who is probably their consistent 3-down back guy, and he even does have a lot of pass catching upside, as we saw too when Drake May was quarterback there. Like he can do a lot. And so I think the big question on the Steelers is just who their quarterback's going to be. I'm still in the belief that Aaron Rodgers is going to come out and sign with them. We are recording this as of Sunday night, so I have to see what news has changed, because this is going to be coming out, I believe, on Tuesday. So this is going to be so that's going to dictate, I think, this pick a little bit. That being said, though, just from what I've been reading, I know Rodgers is waiting, but I do believe that at the end of the day, Rodgers will be quarterback, and then Amari and Hampton will be lining up in the backfield with him. Colson Loveland makes sense. Justin Herbert really likes this pick. Jahdae Barron, the Joe of all trades when it comes to secondary. But in all seriousness, though, like Jahdae Barron, I think him falling here is good value. But this is where I think teams, if they're just looking for secondary help, get Jahdae Barron and be like, hey, we can figure out where he best fits. It's not like one downside, for example, for like a guy like Will Johnson, who is like a pure outside corner. If he's not a good outside corner on Sunday, like it's going to be tough for him to make a career elsewhere.
Yeah.
Jahdae Barron, though, be like, okay, if he doesn't work outside, all right, let's try nickel. Okay, if he's not nickel, let's just try strong safety. Let's try free safety. Let's move him around and see where he can fit because he's got the talent there. And we've seen him do that at Texas. So Jackson Dart, it makes sense. I don't know if I agree with you about Brian Dable's job security. I think if they don't win, then I think that he's just going to get fired. I get your point. I don't know if I agree with it. And then lastly, then too, Donovan Jackson is one of my favorite players here just because of his story and what he did for Ohio State this year to help win a national championship. So I think Texans are going to get a great offensive lineman.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think Donovan Jackson's a really good player. I don't know if it helps Brian Dable's job security in the sense of like maybe the owner will look at it and be like, well, we have this rookie quarterback. I don't know. I think if they can get Jackson Dart in there and show some promise, like I think that helps Brian Dable make the pitch to be like, hey, we have something growing here. Give me one more chance. Although to be fair, I agree. If they come out and suck again this year, um, the owner's probably going to be like, this year was your last chance. Like,
Yeah.
so that's probably the conversation that will go on there. But anyways, let's wrap up this mock draft here. We got 7 more picks to go. So this is a guy that I haven't had in my mock draft in a while, but I think he might be worth taking a swing on. The talent is definitely there. There are just some injury concerns. And for me, that's going to be Ben Morrison, the corner from Notre Dame. Guy, he played, 5 games this year? 6 games. And played pretty well throughout a lot of them. But with that being said, hip injuries for corners are not good. And so he had hip surgery. I haven't heard anything negative about his medicals. I haven't really heard a lot of great things about his medicals either. Like it's just kind of been up in the air. But with that being said, sometimes no news is good news, and he definitely has the talent to be a first round corner. But I think there are some medical red flags. So this is why he's here at 26. If he can come back and be healthy, they have a top flight corner. Like that is the finishing piece, I think, to this defense. Maybe they get a linebacker somewhere, but this is a really big swing with a really big payoff. And so if his medicals check out, I would love Ben Morrison in this system. He's a really good man corner. He's young and definitely shows promise in zone as well. So I like that fit there for the Rams. Here with the Ravens, this is actually where I went and took Tyler Booker. I mean, with we talked about Gray Zabel, and he's my highest graded interior offensive lineman. Gray Zabel is. Tyler Booker, he's not the greatest athlete. He didn't test out super well at the combine, but you go watch his tape at Alabama, and it is like a big, like, you remember the kid, I think when you played, like the kids that were over a certain weight had to wear a red stripe down their helmet because they were so much bigger, like they had to play on the offensive line. But like it looks like he's playing like 2 grade levels down. Like he's just so much stronger than all these SEC defensive linemen. And when he gets his hands on these guys, they immediately fold and he just blows them off the ball. And just think about Derrick Henry running behind that. I think that's a terrifying vision. And so I think with them running a lot more power in Baltimore, I think Gray Zabel, they're not going to ask him to run out and be this like uber athletic guard at the next level. They're going to ask him to get his hands on guys and push them upfield. And I think that's exactly what he's good at. And then they'll let Derrick Henry just kind of run behind him. So fill in that Patrick McCarry loss right there. Here with the Detroit Lions, this is where I went with Nick Scorton, the edge rusher from Texas A&M. This was a guy I was really, really high on coming into the season. I didn't have his best season at Texas A&M after transferring over from Purdue, but there were some, I don't want to say excuses, but we found out some reasons why. They asked me to put on some weight so he would be better defending against the run. And that really kind of slowed him down, I think, in just his overall burst and get off. But even with all that weight, you could see the power that he had in his hands at Purdue. He had even more at Texas A&M. He was a better run defender in 2024 than in 2023. He still had that wicked spin move that he's kind of perfected at A&M that you really saw him like just absolutely make some tackles whiff in the Big Ten in 2023. He had some good reps against Will Campbell, who went earlier in this mock draft. So Nick Scorton going here to the Detroit Lions. Washington Commanders, they're going to take his teammate, Shamar Stewart. This is a uber athletic guy that I think Dan Quinn would love. He's a little bit bigger than I think a lot of Dan Quinn's true edge rushers. But with that being said, I think Shamar Stewart, if he doesn't make it on the edge, I think he would be really intriguing as like a 3-4 end, where he can kind of be penetrating and pass rushing over a guard rather than trying to get around the edge of a tackle. Because one of his weaknesses is he just doesn't have like the elite bend around a corner, around the edge. He can be a little bit stiff. And so if you can get him over a guard where that doesn't necessarily matter, he can really just use his athleticism to make a guy miss in the phone booth. I think that's going to be a place where he can really thrive if he doesn't make it out on the edge. So that's a good pick. Here with the Buffalo Bills, this is where I went with Trey Amos. I think he's just a really physical outside corner. They need that there. They got rid of Kaiir Elam after they were hoping that he would be that there, but just hasn't been. Hopefully Trey Amos can be that for them. Well, as a Patriots fan, hopefully not, but I do think that this is a pick that they would go with there as well. Rounding out here with the last couple of picks. So I'm going to go with Josh Simmons, the tackle from Ohio State here. I think you look, they have Juwan Taylor on the right. They have, who's it? Jalen Moore, from that they just signed on the left. They got rid of some of the interior, like Joe Tooney. But if they can go get Josh Simmons, this is a risk I think that the Chiefs can definitely take. Get him, let him rehab his knee in 2025. If one of the guys gets hurt later in the season, I think that they can definitely that he can definitely fill in for them. But if not, I think in 2026 you have a starting caliber tackle on either side of the football there in Josh Simmons. So that's that pick. And then wrapping things up here for the final pick of my mocks in 2025. I went with Jihad Campbell. So we talked about him when Jalen Walker went at pick 8, but he is everything that I think you want out of Jalen Walker, except he's 6'5", 250, where Jalen Walker is 6'2", 245. And I think he's probably maybe a little bit better at a linebacker spot than Jalen Walker is right now. But if you're Philadelphia, I think you're kind of moving him down into that Josh Sweat role where he can be that long, powerful edge rusher next to these guys. But this to me, I think is a perfect Howie Roseman pick. I think you look at what he's done in the past. He's taken guys that have fallen for whatever reason, whether it's been injuries or just overall athleticism concerns, or they just fall for whatever. And he just takes really talented football players and puts them all on a field together, and boom, they've been to 2 out of the last 3 Super Bowls, and they just won one. And Howie has been probably the best GM in football for the last 5 or 6 years. So I think this is a classic pick for him, and it's going to be the final one of 2025.
I like it. Yeah, no, that Jihad Campbell pick is I think for the final pick of this mock draft, I think perfectly encapsulates how wild this draft is, because how is Jihad Campbell available at 32? You know, and I'm
Yeah.
not saying, and I'm not questioning your decisions. I'm just saying it's because there's reasons and reasonable arguments on why teams would take him over, or why they would take the player that they took over them. You know,
Yeah.
it's not like Jihad Campbell's a sure thing. He is also still a linebacker with pass rush capabilities. He's really explosive, yes. But once again, to your point, though, it's just a perfect pick for the Eagles, and somehow he falls to them. But at the same time, though, this draft makes sense, you know. And start with Benjamin Morrison. I get the pick. Maybe is it a little high? Yes, but for the Rams, if you're looking for secondary help, your next pick's not till 90, and if you can't trade out of that pick and you like this guy, Benjamin Morrison's not going to be there by your 90th pick. You know,
No. And the
so
talent is definitely there. It's
talent's
just the
there.
injury. It's just the injury concern is big.
Exactly. And so I like Tyler Booker, replace Patrick McCarry there. You go lock him in. Now, that being said, they do have the USC guy who tore his ACL.
Andrew Voorhees.
So bringing competition there, you know, or at least still get some depth. But Nick Scorton, Shamar Stewart makes sense. I do feel like Shamar Stewart might not be the right edge rusher based off the defense that they were running, if that makes sense. But maybe they can kick him in and be like a down defensive lineman, so to
Yeah.
say, you
I,
know. But there's some he's athletic enough. Maybe we'll see.
I looked
So
on Our Lads, and it did say that that their base defense was a 4-2-5. And
yeah,
so I don't know if I fully agree with that, but I think that either way, Shamar Stewart, Dan Quinn can find a role for
yeah,
him on that defense.
yeah. And they're having Trey Amos to the Bills. I feel like they just need secondary help, and he's just a really aggressive guy. There's so many different directions I think the Bills can go. I don't know if I like Josh Simmons, but similar thought process to kind of what I felt about the Falcons just drafting edge rusher is for the Chiefs. You've drafted tackles over the past couple of years, and you're trying to find something that would work. So why do another draft pick? And because it's nothing's ever a sure thing, but it's like I get it. Like, and if Josh Simmons works out and he's a perfect left tackle, then it's a great pick. But that's just my thought process on it. I get why they would do that, and I think Josh Simmons, if he can come back healthy, can be a really good NFL player. So we'll have to wait and see. And then the Eagles getting Jahad Campbell, yeah, absolutely makes sense. And
Yeah.
so I think the guy sitting right now on the Eagles depth chart as like the number one edge rusher replacing Josh Sweat, or at least whoever filled his spot, is Jalex Hunt, who they drafted last year. And it's like I think that you could, or was it 2 years ago? I can't remember exactly, but I think Jahad Campbell could potentially fill in that role and at minimum be some good, just a really good linebacker as well to go across with Zach Bond. So I'm so excited for Thursday night. We've done so many of these mock drafts, and every single one has been totally different.
Oh yeah.
And this is going to be an absolutely wild night. I know we make fun of like Cole Strange and the Patriots pick. I'm feeling there might be
Rightfully
multiple
so.
Cole Strange picks where you're
Yeah.
like, I didn't think this guy was going to get picked until way later, and then they're
Oh,
going to draft him in the first round just because they like him. They don't know when they're going to get him. So let's just get him now. And I can kind of get that thought process,
well, also last year too, I felt like it was pretty easy to kind of predict at least like the first 20 picks.
Yeah.
Like it was pretty easy to predict. And this year it's like you have no idea who's taken who when. I'm sure that there's more intel inside like the NFL community, but like no idea. And so I think that could make teams even maybe more aggressive in making a trade up or whatever. Like it's just going to be a chaotic night, I think, of the NFL draft. So I'm really looking forward to it. We are going live at 7:45. Go ahead, go down, hit that subscribe button, hit that bell to get notified when we create new content and when we're going live for the draft. While you're down there, leave a comment on what you thought of this first round mock draft. Did you love it? Did you hate it? What would you have done differently? Other than that, we'll see you guys next time.